The average cost of mesothelioma treatment can exceed $400,000. Families often face losing their homes or life savings just to pay the bills. If you or a loved one worked in these industries and were diagnosed with mesothelioma, you may be entitled to compensation to protect your family. At Rights and Claims, we've helped families recover over $1 billion to cover medical costs, lost wages, and more. Let us help you secure their future with the compensation you deserve. Call 800-596-4889.
Welcome to the Turnpike Sports Spotlight. Dave Weishottle with you. I'm excited to talk to our next guest because he has created something that will not only benefit gamblers, but also the entire gaming industry. It's called Edge Boost, and it's the first of its kind debit card and dedicated bank account that exclusively processes betting transactions. And I think it's going to revolutionize the gaming industry. And we're going to hear all about Edge Boost because on the line we have the founder and CEO of Edge Boost, Seni Thomas. Seni, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and appreciate the kind words.
What you have created in Edge Boost is something so important for the industry, and I really think it will revolutionize the gaming industry. But before we start talking about Edge Boost, tell me something about your background. Were you in the gaming industry before you created Edge Boost?
Not at all, and that's a question that I get quite frequently. And yeah, I think I was able to bring a pretty unique perspective to this. So prior to this, I had two companies in advertising technology. But what I did there is I ended up taking energy trading algorithms, and I come from a business school background, into online tradable media, and we built some really interesting products there. And I've just always been fascinated by just kind of overall marketplaces, money movement in these types of closed ecosystems. And then after that, I was working with a group who ended up acquiring the media rights for Sports Illustrated, and it was really just fascinated at kind of how we can extend that brand, into betting content, and just really started digging around in terms of kind of what are the big problems in gaming today. And the thing that we just kind of kept coming back to is kind of the itch that we kept trying to scratch was just like we'd never seen such a breakdown in money transmission, right? Whether it's kind of the ACH, the wires, the bank decline rates. It's just all so difficult. It's a huge tax on the operators as well. It's a pretty clunky user experience. So yeah, that's kind of where we started. But I think kind of coming from a completely outsider perspective, really helped us look at it in a different way. And kind of the biggest kind of aha moment for us was that, it's never really been a payments problem. Mm-hmm. The fundamental bottleneck here has just been with banking. So if you just had a bank account that could work and work consistently, kind of solves everything else.
Before we start talking about the specifics of Edge Boost, what is Edge Boost and what does it mean for the gamblers who are listening right now? I mean, we all know bettors love quick and easy payments, and I know when it comes to payments, the two buzzwords for bettors are security and speed. So give us the philosophy behind Edge Boost.
Yeah, so I mean, it really is the same thing as like a chime, right? So we're effectively what's called an online neobank. So this is in partnership with Cross River Bank in New Jersey, who's kind of the premier financial technology sponsor bank. So when a user signs up with us, they get a fully FDIC insured checking account. The funds are held at Cross River, and to your point, absolutely secure. Mm-hmm. And then we basically issue you a debit card. But what's really unique about our debit card is that, we know what these transactions are for. So we're not going to flag you on every, second transaction. You're not calling, your bank in the middle of the night trying to get something cleared through. Out of the box, you can also do $250,000 per day on your debit card, right? So, you get that high throughput, you get the security, and, you have an incredibly high approval rate for all of your different gaming accounts.
Now, this is the first of its kind gambling-only financial banking platform, and regardless of how great an idea it is, whenever someone is the first to do something, there are certain challenges associated with getting it up and running. I mean, what were some of the challenges that you face in getting Edge Boost functional and ready for the public? I mean, in the gaming industry, there's always technical and regulatory obstacles that have to be faced. What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome in launching Edge Boost?
Great question. Definitely I had two kids along the way as well over the last 4 years, so definitely aged myself a little bit.
There's
Don't
lots of
recommend.
challenges.
Yeah, don't recommend anyone doing that 1-2 punch. But yeah, on the regulatory side, it is a relatively kind of clear cut. In that we basically were operating as a neobank.
Hmm.
So we're not a gaming company. We don't process any bets. We're not actually providing like a payment service or anything like that to operators. So it's pretty clean on that front. But on the banking side, as you can imagine, it has its own kind of slew of challenges. And um, the real critical insight here is that when you have a normal checking account where you can kind of spend money anywhere,
Hmm.
that produces a lot of problems, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's more potential for money laundering, buying crypto and gift cards, and there's all these other things you can kind of do with an open checking account. And the real innovation for us is that as far as we know, we're the only limited use checking account ever launched.
Hmm.
And so that was the real crux of kind of solving for kind of the regulatory part of it, and kind of making all of our partners comfortable with moving large sums in this space. But essentially, you would sign up, right? You'd link your personal Chase account, for example, to your Edge Boost account, and then the only place you can use this card is at KYC, right? ID verified gaming accounts. So that
Hmm.
could be a DraftKings, that could be at the casino cage, that could be at a horse racing track. But so because of that, even if you went to the bar at the casino, the card would be declined. So that works. So there's a number of benefits for that, right? So number
It's
one is
great.
that for security, if someone hacks into your account, they literally cannot move money into an account that's not controlled by you.
Yeah.
So extra layer of security. It helps you with your responsible gaming because you're effectively using this like a travel account or a savings account, right? You're
Hmm.
segmenting your gaming bankroll into your Edge Boost account, and you're not commingling it with all your other transactions. So you know exactly like how much you're spending. It's only for this type of activity. So it also helps with from an RG standpoint, helping you understand your finances. And then on the AML side, right? So that's a really critical component to this is that you can't deposit in cash. Obviously, it has to come from another bank account. But
Hmm.
the fact that you can only do one thing and it's kind of all verified, we can trace every single dollar end to end, and that was really the critical problem that we had to solve for to get this product approved.
I love that aspect of it because if you talk to anyone who gambles in a responsible way, they will always tell you to have your gambling funds separate. I mean, it shows how much you're spending, and it's absolutely the most responsible way to approach gambling. And I think it's one of the most important things about Edge Boost because you're using money that you set aside for gambling and nothing else. I mean, it's that financial transparency that every person should have when dealing with a banking platform. What was that the important idea behind Edge Boost?
I think for us, it was just looking at the normal financial world, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And in your normal finances, you have so many different tools that help you budget, understand your spending. Whether it's you're spending money on restaurants or clothing. Right? There's so many of these tools out there, and then you have a situation in a higher risk category where it's completely broken. And what we kind of compare is that we're looking at a world in gaming right now of financial fragmentation, and we're trying to move to a world using our edge accounts to financial segmentation.
Hmm.
So what I mean by that is that due to these debit card limits, right, the average person in brick and mortar can only access about $600 to $800 a day. So they're going to bring a bunch of cash, which is obviously very hard to track.
Yeah.
Then on the online side, they're going to hit a debit limit from, let's say, $1,500 to $2,000 a day. So then they're going to try to use their PayPal account, which is also more expensive for operators. But then they don't trust that PayPal's not going to freeze their accounts, so they might have money in Venmo and Skrill, and they're also going to use ACH. So now you have multiple funding accounts that are also commingled with other transactions. And now you're also funding a whole bunch of different gaming accounts. So you have no idea what you're spending, no idea where your money is. I mean, a lot of our users were literally have these little Google spreadsheets, kind of tracking
Yeah.
their money and their spending. And so it's almost just like, how do we just get this back to normal, right? Because this is abnormal. How do we just kind of kind of have a bank account, stuff like that, where you can kind of track all this like you would in all other aspects of your life?
I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people in the gaming industry and a lot of gamblers I know think of the industry as a cash business. I mean, if you want to gamble a certain amount of money, you usually have to bring cash with you to the casino or a sports book. And, some sports bettors bring it in a duffel bag. You call them duffel bag sports bettors because, that's where they carry their cash in. Because dealing with banks and banking institutions is so difficult in the gaming world. I mean, go over that again because that is so important. How does Edge Boost alleviate that problem for gamblers?
A great example is we're actually the official debit card for the World Series of Poker.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great use case, right? Where you have people flying around America with sacks of cash, right?
Yeah, it's
going
crazy.
in and out of games, and and a lot of these places they're not the nicest places of town either. You're kind of looking over your shoulder, right? People get busted all the time coming back from like the Bahamas, from Atlantis. They'll have a bunch of cash from big games. So that was a great partnership, that we've structured. So now you'll be able to actually go to the Horseshoe. You don't have to wait in line for your safety deposit box. You don't have to bring, a backpack full of cash. You have everything on your card. You can go up there. You can do everything through, their new payment system, and it just becomes seamless. So not only is it good for the consumer, and this is the other thing that I think is really important to understand, is that there's so many benefits to the operator. Mm-hmm. Like operators don't want to count $100K in cash and verify the source of funds. They don't want to count that out and give it to you to walk out, go to the parking lot. And there's all these issues around chargebacks and such, which we alleviate as well because we know what this use case is for. The decline rates, not having to deal with wires and ACH and credit lines, it just solves so many of those back office problems for operators. So I don't know, I think it's kind of one of these rare scenarios where it really is a win-win on both ends.
Now, I would guarantee you, I know some people out there are listening and thinking, I can just start another bank account and get another debit card and use that for gambling, which is the complete wrong way of thinking. How is Edge Boost different from the traditional banking and debit cards that are out there right now that are not created for the gambling industry?
I think we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Again, I think the biggest bottleneck is just going to be very low limits, on a daily basis. Like I said, brick and mortar is only about $600 to $800, right, per day, and that's what creates a lot of this fragmentation. Is that initial bottleneck? I think we've also all been there too. When we want to access funds and something gets flagged and we're on hold for 20 or 30 minutes trying to sort it out. So all of those kind of headaches also disappear. But yeah, I think at the end of the day that's really it, right? Is that we're just going to do one thing, we're going to do it really well. All of our partners and regulators know exactly what this account is being used for, and because you can't do anything else with it. Mm-hmm. It's a great place to keep your bankroll.
And one of the great things about Edge Boost that a lot of traditional banks, or most traditional banks, don't have is that you have responsible gaming tools, which I think are great. And one of the great features that Edge Boost has is that you have personalized spending limit suggestions. Tell us about that, because I think that's so important, especially when you're talking about gambling responsibly. And it's an incredible thing for protecting gamblers out there.
Yeah, and I think for us, we look at scale and we kind of approach RG from a very pragmatic standpoint. And, we have a bunch of tools, which I'll kind of touch on.
Sure.
But the two most important things anybody can do is just segmenting their gaming money. And then by running it through an account, they actually know where their money is and how much they're spending. And those two things right now are quite opaque. And if you can't solve for those, nothing else downstream really matters, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other part of this, which is really unique, and something the regulators, have really been asking for a long time, is universal limits across all of your gaming activity nationwide. And that is a very, very difficult thing to execute when you're trying to get operators, across state lines to share data.
Sure.
But now, since everything's running through the debit card, you as a consumer can now see all your data in one place without the operators having to lift a finger. You can now do universal limits. So that means it could be the weekend in Vegas, right? Plus maybe you went to New Jersey on the ponies and you went back into, you're on DraftKings on your couch in New York. But all that now goes to one location. You can set these universal limits. You can also do cool down periods for your whole bankroll. And our most popular feature actually is a feature called Copilot. So
I love that idea, because I was going to ask you about that. That's such a great idea.
And it was no, again, from a technology standpoint, right? Super easy to implement, but you know what? It's just like it's like having a gym buddy, right? Who's
Hmm.
making sure you're working out. So if you have a co-pilot, you basically will send each other weekly transcripts of your activity, so you can kind of keep tabs on each other. And maybe a buddy over beers is like maybe you should cool down, right? It's a little bit more effective than a little alert popping up in your app. And the other part of that too is that one of the things that just never made sense to us is if you have a monthly limit, what's the point of a monthly limit if you could just change it whenever you want?
Sure.
So with Copilot, if you want to increase any of your limits, the verification code is actually sent to your Copilot. So it kind of adds one additional kind of layer of accountability, if you want to spend more.
Now, recently, Edge Boost announced a responsible gaming partnership with Birch's Health, which I think is really great. Tell us something about that partnership, and what does that partnership mean for the people who use Edge Boost?
Yeah, so I think Burgess is fantastic because I think as much as everyone talks about responsible gaming, what's the action, right? So like once somebody has identified and stuff, you need to make it a very seamless funnel. And so there's kind of two stages that we look at it, right? And also I think the other thing here too is I think the AGA is doing a really good job right now trying not to kind of ostracize gamers where it's a small subset who really have an issue. There's other people who can probably just tap the brakes a little bit, and I think the majority are all right. But what's a fascinating story for us is that we actually built out a lot of transaction monitoring tools with a company called Unit 21. So this is like financial technology, right? Like looking at money laundering and transactions and all of that stuff. And what we found is a lot of those same alerts are very similar to irresponsible gaming behavior. So maybe like a lot of small deposits in a row and things like that. So we've been able to actually now use this kind of brain in the back to start pushing alerts to users where we're actually going to start sending them RG content from Burgess. And then we can kind of do a risk analysis on our side for the user, especially if it's repeat behavior, and then funnel them directly to purchase. So data is a great thing, but data also needs to be actionable.
Now, I also think it's important for people to know that Edge Boost is a secure platform and that it's FDIC insured. Tell us something about that because it's really important for people to know that their money is safe with Edge Boost.
Yeah, so Edge, Edge Boost itself, right? We're basically what's called a neobank. So we're not a bank ourselves. We don't hold the license, so it works exactly the same as Chime. So when you deposit the funds, it's held at our partner bank, which is Cross River in New Jersey. So yeah, it's just like a normal bank account, up to $250,000 and it's fully secured.
Talk about the cash back incentives when customers use Edge Boost, because I think that's really important for people to know about because everyone loves rewards and you can certainly get them when you use Edge Boost.
Yeah, definitely. So the thing is, obviously, this is your own money, right? I think something that is a little bit misunderstood is like we're incentivizing spend, but that's really not the objective at all. The objective is that all these RG tools only really work when you're consolidating all of your spend with us so that you have a full picture of your gaming activity. So it's really the same as you're paying for dinner and it's like, am I going to use my Amex or my Sapphire card, right? And you're like, okay, well, if I'm getting a reward over here, I can consolidate more spend. So that's definitely the idea. But yeah, you can earn up to 0.5% in cash back for every deposit for sports betting and daily fantasy.
Now, I mentioned to you off air about this. I'm in New Jersey, and we have online sports betting, online poker, online casinos, retail sports books, almost everything. And in the past, I've run into problems where certain gambling platforms do not take funds from certain banks. What about Edge Boost? What's the compatibility with the gaming platforms out there? Because I can tell you it's extremely frustrating when a gaming platform and certain banks, which I will not name right here, they're not compatible and will not allow you to transfer funds. I mean, what's the compatibility like with Edge Boost?
I mean, it's pretty much universal. So our requirements are that you have to be kind of gaming or gaming adjacent, right? So we're a neutral party here, right? So you can use us on like sweep sites, prediction markets, kind of the full gamut. Even the regulators agree that the ones who think that is gaming activity, it makes sense for users to be able to see that type of activity in one location. Those laws change, we'll adapt. But yeah, I mean, you could pretty much use it in any location that has that KYC component, right? So for us, what's really important is that you have to be a U.S. resident. You have to be a legal U.S. operator.
Okay.
So no offshore and all that stuff. And then pretty much, I mean, it's near 100%, approval for all those types of transactions.
Now, with Edge Boost, are there any minimum balances or maintenance
No,
costs associated with your
not
platform?
at all.
Oh my God,
I appreciate you bringing this up.
That's
So
great.
I mean, I think some of people's feedback is like, it sounds too good to be true. The way that we make money is actually the same as Chime also, right? So basically the business model is that every time you generate a deposit, so somebody uses that card, Visa actually pays us what's called an interchange fee. And it's that fee that actually pays for all of your airline points and all your different rewards programs. So that's how we make money. So we actually pass through some of that as cash back to our consumers. Depending on our operator deals, we actually share some with our operators as well. So that's a new revenue line item for them. And then we keep a little piece ourselves. But the company's already profitable. And then so there's no subscription fees, monthly fees, minimums, none of that.
Oh, that's great. And I was going to ask you about feedback. I know Edge Boost has been out for a little bit now. What has been the feedback from people who have used Edge Boost? It seems like it'd be an incredible tool and certainly a great asset for gamblers out there.
Yeah, I think we have a very loyal kind of user base. We kicked things off in September. That was kind of like a beta period. You had a little kinks here and there, but everything's been really stable. We in March for March Madness, we did over $250 million in transaction volume. So really, really ramping up now. And we see, most people kind of over like a 6 to 8 week period end up consolidating their entire bankroll with us. Obviously it's kind of people dip their toes in. It is a financial product. It's been overwhelmingly positive.
So what has been the reaction from people who work in the gaming industry about Edge Boost? I mean, not only from the online platforms, but also retail casinos, because I'm constantly talking with people in the casino industries who keep telling me that cashless gaming is the future, and it really seems like Edge Boost is an important piece and a necessary step to what they're talking about. I mean, what has been their reaction to Edge Boost?
Really, really positive.
Great.
I mean, so we work directly. We're actually rolling out with Pechanga and Circa as a kind of tests for basically kind of doing an operator direct deal for their brick and mortar casinos. I mean, our pipeline is about 18 or 20 casinos at the moment.
Wow, great.
Because we solve so many problems for them, right? Cash access is a huge issue. Most people can only take out, like $600 to $800. And then the casinos don't want to manage that cash. They don't want the money, the cash coming in and out and verifying source of funds, counting it out. I mean, there's just, but also, we get rid of the chargebacks, we get rid of a lot of the pain points around like ACH and wires, even like credit line liability, right? Like you're only giving credit lines to people who have the money, but if they can just walk in with their own money, you don't even have to do the credit line. So it just streamlines a lot of the back office for brick and mortar casinos. So that's actually been, the strongest feedback has been on that side. And then to your point, I think with cashless, we have a lot of really interesting initiatives out there. So we have like NRT is doing Lily, and I think it's called like Rapid Play with Light and Wonder, IGT and stuff are also developing some really cool ways of moving money into like slot machines. But as soon as money turns digital, the single number one bottleneck is going to be what is your daily limit on your debit card. Mm-hmm. That's it. And we solved that, which is the single biggest bottleneck for adoption.
It really seems, when I read about Edge Boost, I mean, this is what they're talking about on cashless gaming. I can see that applied, and I see that is the tool for cashless gaming, what everyone was talking about for a couple of years now.
Yeah, I think that's... we agree with you. And I think we just kind of want to be that facilitator, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't provide any of the technology. I think it's kind of one of these things where, the bottleneck, as I mentioned before, has really been on the banking side. So as long as you can increase the throughput there, you can start really kind of moving people away from really just walking in with, like you said, right, like the satchels of cash.
Yeah, right, the duffel bags. So what's in the future for Edge Boost? Are there any plans to build upon the platform that's out right now? And do you have anything new that people should be on the lookout for with regards to Edge Boost?
Yeah, I think we're really doubling down on our RG features. I think that's kind of something that we're very excited about. One of the really interesting things about being a financial layer is that we're kind of the only solution that sits outside of the operator, right? And so we're kind of neutral. We don't know if you win or lose or anything else. We kind of help aggregate all that information. But since we're not a regulated gaming entity, we actually have access to some really interesting financial data that gaming operators can't access. So I think what we want to do is actually start automating a lot of these kind of RG tools. And a great example, so we're looking to kind of roll this out the second half of this year, is that when a user signs up, they're going to link their bank account through a platform called Plaid. And we can actually see anywhere from 2 to 3 years of their bank statements, if the user opts in to share that data. So what is really fascinating there is that not only can we look at holistic income, so we can say that you get a direct deposit every 2 weeks, but you're also going to get maybe you have a rental property, maybe you have I don't know, Uber Eats on the weekends. But then the piece of data that the industry has never taken a look at before is what are your fixed costs, right? So what is your mortgage? What is your your insurance payments, car payments, etc. So we'll actually be able to, on a monthly basis, come up with an estimate on your disposable income and your cash flow capacity, so that again people kind of just set it and forget it and say, hey, I only want to bet up to 50% of my kind of disposable income per month, right? So we can automatically do this, and I think that's going to be the really kind of critical component to adoption in the U.S. Is it just has to be really easy. I don't want to fiddle with settings across 5 different apps. And, I still want all the protections.
Seni, we're running out of time, but can you give out a website for Edge Boost so if people want to find out more about it and actually start using it, they could do so?
Absolutely. So it's, just edgeboost.bet, edgeboost.bet.
Seni Thomas, founder and CEO of Edge Boost, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about Edge Boost. I really think this is going to change a lot in the gaming industry. To have a platform where you can efficiently and responsibly use funds for gambling. It's an incredible product that changes the gambling industry for the better. Please come back on and keep us updated about what's happening with Edge Boost. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Take care.
That'll do it for us this week. We'll see you next time on The Turnpike.